Welcome. You're listening to Coffee Break with Purdue Engineering, a podcast production from the Office of Future Engineers at Purdue University. In this podcast series, we discuss the many programs, majors, and opportunities found in Purdue Engineering through conversational interviews with staff, faculty, alumni, and current students. We hope you enjoy our show and it helps answer some of your questions about what it's like to be an engineering student at Purdue. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode where we're going to be discussing Purdue's Industrial Engineering or IE major. I'm one of your hosts, Calvin Given. I'm a current graduate student in Electrical and Computer Engineering from Lakewood, Colorado.
And I'm your other host, Bryan and Calvin. I'm a sophomore in Electrical Engineering from Miami, Florida. And some things I'm involved with on campus are the National Society of Black Engineers, the Minority in Engineering Program. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And this week we are joined by Sathwik Palwai.
Hi guys, my name's Sathwik. I am a senior in industrial engineering. I'm originally from Lincolnshire, Illinois, kind of like northwest Chicago suburbs. Things I'm involved with on campus. I think I'm formally involved with a lot of stuff. It's my senior year right now, so I'm just kind of zeroed in on senior design. But I was a member of the fencing club. I was involved with the industrial and systems engineers here on campus. And I've been bouldering recently, which has been fun, but it's not been good for my hands. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me, and I guess I don't know.
Awesome. It's great to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining us, Sathwik.
Yeah, no problem.
Where are you from?
Lincolnshire, Illinois. So
Okay.
so kind of like Chicagoland area. It's like 45 minutes from the city.
Okay.
Northwest. I like to say it's kind of like a starting place in like a game. Everything was kind of like just nice there. You have access to the city, access to like the Wisconsin. You have the lakes up there. It's kind of a nice like centrally located area, I guess.
Yeah, and what'd you like to do for fun in general and just around there when you were growing up?
Growing up, I think my parents put me in a lot of like activities in sports when I was young because they were like, just try everything and whatever sticks. So I did gymnastics, I did figure skating, I did tennis, swimming, soccer, like everything when I was in elementary school. And then when I got into like middle school, high school, they're like, all right, just pick a couple, see what you like. So I really like just like reading. I like reading a lot, reading books, novels, that type of stuff, and just like general knowledge stuff. So I did Scholastic Bowl in middle school, and then I quit in high school. But that was like my middle school like thing is I really liked like I don't know if you guys have heard of Scholastic Bowl before, but it's like a general knowledge like quiz kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
No, I haven't.
It's like you're on a team of like 4 or 5 people. It's been a while, but they ask you a question, you buzz in, and then you answer. And you compete against like another school. And then in high school, I think the 2 things I was really involved in were peer tutoring.
Okay.
So we had a peer tutoring program at our high school where you could just sign up like, I want to be a math tutor, I want to be a science tutor, and if you had good grades and you did well in those classes, you'd be a tutor for that. So you'd go in the library for like an hour or so, you'd have your shift, and you'd do that. So I was very involved in that, and in the fencing team. That's like Olympic fencing, like with the swords and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a funny story. So I actually got started with it because I was waiting for the bus, like the late bus.
Okay.
Because I had a club meeting, and my friend was like, all right, you're just sitting here. We have fencing practice. You should come. And I was like, okay, whatever, I'll go.
This is the first time you ever fencing?
Every time. It was sophomore year of high school. And then I just fell in love with it. I went to I guess I should have prefaced that, but I went to a very large high school. It had 4,000 kids there.
Oh, wow.
So I had a lot of opportunities there,
Gotcha.
which I really, really enjoyed. And I was able to take advantage of a lot of that.
Yeah, that's super cool, that opportunity. Like fencing came your way. How coming to Purdue come your way, and what was your journey like getting from high school to here?
So from high school to Purdue, I think I always was interested in engineering as a discipline. One of my best high school teachers, Mr. May, I don't know, you might watch this, but freshman year we had, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name, Project Lead the Way.
PLTW? Yeah, I did that in high school too.
So freshman year I had whatever the intro course was. And he was my teacher for that, and he was a great teacher, and he really got me involved with like engineering work in general, building things, designing things, that sort of stuff. I guess I'd always had kind of like an interest in it. Both my parents are software engineers, but I don't like CS that much, frankly. But like that kind of was always in the back of my head, right?
Yeah.
And I think just taking those classes, and I did it all 4 years, really helped push me towards engineering generally. Originally, I was actually interested in aerospace engineering just because I like planes.
Yeah.
I thought they looked cool. I'd like to see them flying through the sky. I used to look at like old like airplane photos, like how the terminals used to look, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always thought it was cool. So that's my main interest in aero. And I guess I chose Purdue because it was a good aerospace school. I do this for EIS as well, but I say my decision came down to UMich, UIUC, and Purdue. UMich, I kind of threw out the window because it costs $80,000 a year. I didn't have $80,000.
Yeah, out of state for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And their engineering campus is located away from their normal campus. So it's like 15 minutes away, right? So I didn't want to go there. UIUC and Purdue was what it came down to for me. And Purdue just felt more collaborative to me when I got here. Like, I liked the idea of, everyone works together. Everyone just kind of, helps each other grow up.
Yeah.
And UIUC is a good school. I have lots of friends who go there. I go there a lot on the weekends. But, I chose Purdue, and I'm very happy with my choice.
And so what kind of led you to choose IE? Because I know you said you were very interested in aero, and then could you kind of describe what industrial engineering looks like?
For sure. So I came into it with aerospace engineering was like my...
That was your goal.
That
That's
was
where
my
you
goal.
were going
Yeah.
after first year engineering.
I did like the little Zucro Labs thing. I did like stuff in high school with like solar sailing. It's like when you use like the energy of the sun to kind of propel spacecraft, that sort of stuff. And then I got here and I took aeromechanics and I took aerospace design, A203 and 251. And I hated those classes so much. Oh my God.
Was this in your freshman year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did early start as well.
Okay.
So I kind of
cool.
had a different pathway. But my friend, Kevin, he actually originally wanted to be BME, but he became an IE later. But he was involved with the consulting clubs on campus, Purdue Solutions. And, I was like, dude, I'm actually looking forward more to like talking with him about what he's doing in terms of like IE stuff.
Yep.
Then like I'd procrastinate on my homework so I could like talk to him about this stuff. And I was like, okay, clearly this is not the choice for me.
Yeah.
So I remember after freshman year, I was like talking to my parents. I was like, hey, so this is maybe something I'd like to do. And that was like a different conversation because, they always were like, okay, well, he's set on this. He's got this goal. And, I didn't know much about the IE program before I got here, right? Obviously, I know now we're like number 2 in the nation, but I didn't even know what it was. So
a lot of people don't coming in.
So I guess speaking to what IE is actually, I guess it's the design and optimization of systems is like the general term. And I know that sounds kind of like a cop-out. It's like, well, you just make things, right? There's a lot of different pathways you can go down with it. You can go human factors, right? Making things more ergonomic in design. You can go the manufacturing route, which I did for my internship. You can go down an optimization or operations research, which is kind of optimizing pathways, a more statistics-focused route. And a lot of people do go down the consulting pathway where they do strategy or management consulting. So it's a wide variety of things, but I think the thing that kind of ties them together is applying industrial engineering principles, which is like using statistical analysis, using kind of like reduction and variation, that kind of stuff. That kind of ideology kind of flows across all parts of IE.
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of ties it together. So it's a broad discipline. There's a lot of things you can do with it. But I think there's certain principles across IE that you apply to every single pathway.
Yeah. And are there different concentrations within the major to kind of tailor the degree to your interest? Or what are some companies or I think you mentioned some of the industries that you can work in, but do you have any specifics on those?
So there's not an official concentration, I'll say. So you don't, like, I know aerospace students, they'll choose, like, I want to do prop or I want to do design, right? IE, it's a little more flexible and unofficial. So you have tech electives, right? And mostly people will tailor their tech electives to the classes that they, or like, sorry, not the classes, to the concentration. So whether that be manufacturing or human factors or operations research or maybe facilities planning, to what they are trying to do. And so it is still kind of, people know usually about their junior year what kind of pathway they want to go down. And then they kind of just pick classes based off that, based on what's most interesting or most relevant to what their future career path is. And in terms of industries, manufacturing, I think, is a big one. I think we have a very strong manufacturing program here. We'll talk about build at scale and stuff later, but I think basically any company that manufactures something, right? You have, I worked for HK Fuller, which is a chemical manufacturing plant. They make adhesives, glue, basically. So Gorilla Glue, that's stuff you heard about, like stuff they put in caulk guns. Stuff for like cars, planes, whatever, adhesives. They make a lot of that stuff, but across any kind of thing, I know we send a lot of people to, Sorry, I'm on camera now and I'm blanking on every single company that I've ever heard of.
That's all good.
It's all good. Don't worry.
Do you know who's the company in like Ohio that does P&G or something like that? Does that sound
Procter
familiar?
and Gamble is
Procter and
a
Gamble.
huge company
Yeah.
that does a lot of manufacturing.
Exactly. That's the name I'm blanking on. Yeah. So I think manufacturing, that's a big one that a lot of people like to go to. I know they come on campus. They have like this test you
Yeah.
take.
Oh.
In their interviews, they give you like this prep test, and a lot of IUs will tell you about that if you ask them about that. Yeah, the manufacturing side, any company really that does it, and you'll see a custom variety of different applications, whether that be aerospace, whether that be commercial, whether that be automotive, whatever it is, you'll have a lot of companies that do that. In terms of human factors, I think this kind of also you use a lot of manufacturing.
Yeah.
Because you have people who are moving loads, repetitive motion, that sort of stuff, and you want to reduce, damage to the human body. But I mean furniture design, all that kind of stuff, where anytime you have a person who's in a position and you want to reduce the damage to them, that affects that, right? And I think one thing that I didn't really know about before I took my human factors classes is human-computer interaction. So how do we interact with different interfaces, UX design, that sort of stuff, and automation as well, So what are the levels of automation that you can get to, and, how involved does a human need to be in that process? Is it fully automated where you can just leave it to do its own thing, or it's just being like maintained or monitored, that sort of stuff? So I think that's a different pathway you can go down. Operations research is the pathway that I'm particularly interested in. So that's optimization of any kind of like problem.
Okay.
So I think the big one that people may have heard of is a traveling salesman problem. So you have perhaps a salesman and he has to hit X amount of cities in a certain amount of time. What's the best pathway he can do it, right?
Yep.
So let's say you have to hit Chicago, Detroit, and Columbus, right? And you're starting in Chicago. Well, normally you go Chicago, Columbus, Detroit, and then come back to Chicago, right? Pretty simple.
Yeah.
I don't know if Columbus is good at whatever. let's say you start in Indianapolis and you go to West Lafayette and you have to go to Detroit and you have to get back to West Lafayette, right? So you can do like probably any pathway and it'd work out decent, right? We'll expand it out to maybe 5 cities, right? And you put them across the map. So you throw in Denver and Miami there, right? Just kind of going where you guys are kind of
Appreciate the shout out.
Thank you.
well, now it's a different path, right?
Yeah.
And say there's other constraints you add to that. Maybe you have to hit Miami first, or you have to hit Denver fourth. And then you do it out to 10, right? So now what's the best solution? Where you can't just go maybe shortest distance anymore because there's combinations that work better. So looking at how to do that kind of stuff. And I'm working for UPS later. That's going to be my full-time thing. Working in their facilities. So, I mean, some of that shipping stuff is applicable to me personally. I just think it's a really interesting field.
Yeah.
I guess we'll talk about class a little later on, but some of the classes that I really liked were involved with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember you kind of talking about how you hated that first aero class you took. So I was going to kind of ask, like, the first IE class you took, did you enjoy it a lot? And then what are some of your favorite classes you've been in?
I guess, well, let me finish off the, because there's the other pathway I want to mention. 'Cause a lot of
we
people
missed
do it.
one?
Yeah. Is the consulting path. So again, I talked about my friend who was involved in Purdue Solutions. I have friends who are involved in Purdue Think, another consulting organization here on campus. It's a very popular pathway. People go to, Big Four, whatever, consulting firms, more boutique firms, MBB. Sorry, these are kind of just jargon. Good consulting firms, essentially. People go to from here because they get a lot of experience, practical experience with the clubs they have on campus and the work we do. Yeah, it's just another pathway. In terms of like actual classes I liked, the first IE class that I think I knew that this was kind of for me, I guess. IE 230 is your first statistics class. It's like an intro to statistics. And I just liked it.
Yeah.
I guess I just like the idea of there being like a definite pathway, like probabilities of things.
Yeah.
I like doing the math for it. I like finding the solution. And then that kind of put me on the path to, I enjoy this class. I like doing it.
Yeah.
But in terms of like later classes, I want to talk about 2 particularly that I really enjoyed. IE 335, which is about optimization, linear optimization. That kind of is involved with the traveling salesman problem, the kind of stuff I told you about. And it's a lot about how to structure a problem. So there's a lot of optimizers we use in the industry within, classes. And this class focused on how to kind of structure a problem to put them into the optimizers. And I think that was just really cool. Kind of, you're given like, obviously in the workplace, whatever you do, your boss is going to give you an issue, right? That issue might not be properly structured out, properly sorted or whatever. And you need to kind of structure in a way where it becomes an actual problem you can solve. You know what I mean? It's not just something out nebulous and kind of out in the air. It's something, physical that you can look at and you can solve. And then I-370 with Professor Martinez is manufacturing processes. So looking at how different kind of processes, whether that be like mills, lathes, CNC machines, it can be, using ceramics, it can be laser engraving, semiconductors, all that sort of stuff. I think it was a very intensive class because every week we had to do like a project on that specific manufacturing thing. You have to do like a 10-minute presentation recorded on, what is the manufacturing process. And the cool thing was he'd give us a scenario. So remember, one was like, there's this bridge, there's like this like gap in the Grand Canyon. It was like, okay, what are the best processes we've learned about this week that you can use to bridge that gap? I was like, wow, it's a super cool, it's like practical applications of what I'm doing. And he's a great teacher. If you guys can, take 370 Martinez. I liked it a lot. It is a lot of work, but I think what you get out of the class is
It sounds like
insane.
really practical work, though, where
Exactly.
you're actually, those are the processes you're going to be using in industry and you would use in a job, so knowing how to do them is invaluable, essentially. I do want to circle back to something you mentioned a little bit earlier. You talked about doing early start.
Yeah.
Do you mind describing the program
Sure.
and what that is, why you might want to do it?
I think my experience is going to be a little non-traditional because I was 2020. I was the COVID year, like the first COVID year.
Yep.
So early start, what it is you have the opportunity to take a number of classes, usually one or two, prior to starting at Purdue in the fall semester. So you might do them over the summertime. Me personally, I took IE 131, which is the first engineering class you'll take if you do the Ideas to Innovation pathway. And I think the engineering seminar that everyone has to take freshman year. I did it online, but you can do it on campus as well. I think most people do it on campus now. But I think it was a good way, first of all, just to get a step ahead on like the engineering program, get involved with what a college course looks like and the rigor of it. But also, it really helps you kind of make connections prior to coming to campus. Obviously, if you're on campus during the summertime, you're going to meet people easily through that way. But I was online. I knew maybe like two people that I actually like was friends with were coming to Purdue, but I wanted to like kind of branch out.
Yeah.
And some of the first people I met on campus were people I met through my early start group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He invited me to like a poker game the day I got here. He was like, "Hey, I know you're here. Just pull up to McCutcheon.
Okay. Yep.
And we'll play a game." And I was like, "Okay, this sounds really cool." And I just kind of made connections through that. I think it's a really cool program. If that's something you're interested in, it kind of gives you the that kind of pathway immediately.
Yeah, and it helps kind of ease you in a little bit to the college atmosphere where you
Definitely
have less people on campus, so you can talk to the professors a little bit easier, and you can also only take a couple classes for those few weeks and focus on doing them well, so that when you get into the semester where you're taking 4 or 5 courses, you're going to be better able to manage all that course load, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it definitely is. I think especially, I think the rigor is one thing I want to highlight here. I say this a lot during my information session as well, but there's so many resources out there for people to use, and you should utilize as many of them as you can. Again, talking about like high school to college transition, again, I had a lot of resources in high school, but I think everyone's first semester, it's a difficult transition process, right? And I think I kind of fell off the wagon a little bit there. I spent too much free time, hanging out, just playing around, doing things that I probably shouldn't have been as involved in. If it was like, okay, it's like 9 p.m. and I have an assignment due at midnight, well, it's fine. I can go skate for like an hour or two, and then I can come back and finish it. And it's like, well, no, you can't. You should probably do
that's
the
a
work
decision.
first. Also, just like time management skills, utilizing office hours, utilizing recitation sessions, utilizing help rooms, all of that kind of stuff. I think second semester, freshman year, first semester, sophomore year, I use that significantly more. And I think there's a lot of stuff that people just aren't aware of that is a resource that's available to you, right? Stuff like the CCO, you know what I mean? With resume help, interview help, whatever. Just joining a lot of clubs in general. I didn't join any clubs my first semester, which I was like, okay, it's COVID, whatever. Not going to meet that often, but like, it's you should take advantage of that because that still exists out there, right? There's so many people on this campus who want to help you, succeed. If it should never be feeling like, it's too late to kind of get back. It's too late to kind of make the semester good again. I think it should always focus on success and there's stuff available.
Yeah, and the biggest way I feel like to not end up in that position where come April or November and you're like, oh no, what have I done this semester, is to be honest with yourself and admit when you're struggling. Because if you're struggling way back in the beginning, get help then. Don't wait until March or April or October or November to get that help, because then you'll be able to stay on track for the entire semester. And yeah, like Sathwik was saying, there's so many resources, both academically, professionally, as well as just personally, whether it's the CARES Hub or CAPS here on Purdue's campus, that are there to help you. One that I'd like to touch on briefly is the Academic Success Center, and they can help you with that adjustment of time management, because in college you don't have as much dedicated time that you're stuck in a building like you are in high school. You're going to be in classes for 4 hours instead of maybe 8 a day. And then the rest of the time, you have to prioritize the homework that needs to get done, studying for exams, while also balancing having fun. And it's possible to do all that with correct time management skills.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite things that every class offers is office hours, and like some classes will even have like help rooms where they're just available all day. So I really love that, and like, I can go whenever during the day, so it always fits into my schedule.
Specifically, thermodynamics. There's a fraternity that some kind of professional fraternity that does like help sessions before the thing.
Exams.
I got a 97 on my first exam because of them. Yo, use those so much. They're so good. I can't even stress how much. Like, do the exam problems exactly step by step. They lay it out so easy. Like, it's everything's out there. Office hours, like you said, not just as like a resource, but like you have one-on-one time with a professor a lot of the time, and it's like this is someone who's at the top of their field for whatever they do. You know what I mean? They're doing research right now that is going to like
change the world.
It's new, right? Like I was one of my professors, I had a class on Tuesday, and she was like, I like my job because I just make stuff up. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're making things that just don't exist right now. Like that's a crazy resource that's available. So just use that.
Yeah, and then switching gears back to industrial engineering, what are some of the lab spaces that you get access to, some of the lab courses that you've really enjoyed that industrial engineers have access to?
I guess I'm going to harp on this a little more, but 370 specifically, manufacturing processes, you get to see hands-on some of the manufacturing processes that are there. So build at scale specifically. It's a really, really cool lab that we have here in the Dudley building. That's kind of dedicated to a lot of IE stuff. It works with corporate partners, that sort of stuff, and more advanced technologies, whether that be automated robots, whether that be AGVs, whether that be like robotic arms or AI stuff. But we specifically used it. We learned like about mills, lathes, CNC machines, drills, that sort of stuff. How like, shards can fall off, how you have to account for that kind of stuff. How to like use the machine specifically. I think it's a really cool space. It's because a lot of the time when you're designing something or you're designing a procedure, you're kind of caught up in the in the theory of it, right? Like, well, this can theoretically do this, so we can kind of like use it in conjunction with this. It's like, okay, now you're on the floor and you're looking at it.
And it seems a little abstract when you're just designing it on a computer.
And it's like, well, what are the practical realities of this? Do you know what I mean? Does this need to have this small of a tolerance when it's like not really necessary, right? Is this really the best way to do this just because I thought it was cool and I did it in class? Well, no, if there's a more straightforward method that's more cost efficient, just do this instead. I think build at scale, it's big, it's flashy, and people like play it a lot, but you do get to use a lot of the stuff in there, and it's very practical. I think additionally, my senior design project right now involves a simulation model. And one of the things that we're simulating are autonomous mobile robots, or AMRs, and they have those in there, which is pretty cool. I think that's the big lab space I've used. There's other stuff in this building. A lot of human factors classes. I'm not as involved in that side of engineering. But they have some really cool stuff that I've just seen tangentially. Like they have like this lab that like simulates, like it can like take a scan of you doing something and then put that into like a 3D model, which is really cool. I
felt that the the practicality and the lab courses, especially in any of the engineering majors, because you will be taking lab courses in whatever major you're in, are really beneficial. Like, it's one thing, at least for me as an electrical engineer, designing a PCB and seeing it on my computer and all the layers, but it's a completely different thing when the board actually shows up that you've ordered and you're like, oh, that's a lot smaller than I was expecting. Oh, that's a lot bigger than I expected. There was one where we had a little tiny chip that was maybe half the size of my fingernail that I had to solder on. I thought it was a lot bigger when I ordered it, and then I saw it and I was like, oh, this is going to be a challenge. But it was a fun challenge, and it's cool to actually see the practical application of those kind of things.
Yeah, and I know you kind of touched on about internships. So I kind of want you to kind of dive more deep into that and kind of your experiences with getting them.
So I'm gonna go against the grain a little bit here with internships and co-ops. People talk a lot about IR. I don't like IR. I think it's a really good way to get opportunities, but I feel that it can be a bit overwhelming. Like
there's so many companies.
It's like 400 to 500 companies. Yes. IR is Industrial Roundtable. It's the largest student-run career fair in the country. It's right here at Purdue. They set up, actually, behind us. I don't know. They probably can't see through the windows. But they set up a Memorial Mall, which is like this big, like, kind of open lawn space that we have. And lots of companies come there, and everyone on campus is kind of there. You'll see people in suits walking out, and you'll be like, oh, that's today? You know what I mean? You should probably know about it before, but sorry, I bumped into the mic there. But it's really cool, and it's a good way to get your feet wet, especially if you're like a freshman, sophomore, kind of understand what companies are looking for. And as a junior, senior, kind of narrowing in on a specific set of companies prior, and then kind of talking with them about the company, if they're looking for something, and what that is specifically. Yeah,
and so if you don't recommend Industrial Roundtable, how did you get your internships?
Two that I really like.
All right.
The first is a co-op career fair that happens every spring. It's in the Purdue Memorial Union, and it focuses entirely around co-ops. I like it a lot because I think especially for incoming students, freshmen and sophomores, co-ops are... Sorry, let me go into those.
What are the difference between an internship and a co-op?
So internships, let's say 8 to 12 weeks, usually over the summertime, one company, kind of traditional internship experience where you work with them, you do internship projects, you get experience with that field, right? Co-ops are, let's say you do an internship, but then you do multiple rotations of it, right? You might do one over the summer, then one over spring, and then back to summer. But it's usually all with one company, and you rotate through different departments, right? So one day you're doing quality control. One rotation you're doing quality control, one rotation you're doing design, one rotation you're doing analysis maybe. I think it's really helpful if there's a specific company you want to get into, or if that company works heavily with a field that you want to be involved in, because it gets you more in-depth knowledge with that company. And it's also a really good way to get full-time offers because they've invested a lot of time into you.
And you've invested a lot of time into them.
Usually by your second or third rotation, you're basically just a full-time employee at that point. And I know a lot of people who've gotten their full-time offers that way. I got my, it's a funny story, I got my co-op through the co-op career fair because if any of you watching are familiar with industrial engineering, there's this certificate you can get called Six Sigma, a green belt for it. And there's an acronym called DMAIC. And I showed my resume to the guy, the plant manager who was there at the time. And he asked me what it meant. And I was like, okay, define, measure, analyze, and improve control. And he was like, you're the first person who's told me all day what that means. Interview tomorrow. I was like, okay. You know what I mean? I was really excited, and I got the job from that. But, I just think it's a really good way to, talk with companies who are looking long-term. Yeah. Right? Not to talk about internships or anything, but I'm biased. I did a co-op. I really liked the program. And then moving into the other career fair that I really liked, our major specific career fairs. Yeah. So IE has Sigma during the spring, and that's really cool. That's where I got my full-time at UPS from. I think it's really good because the recruiters are oftentimes alumni from your specific engineering discipline. Yep. At IR, it can be different. You know what I mean?
They're going to be Purdue engineering alumni, but they might be a civil engineer instead of an electrical engineer.
Exactly. So having someone who understands the coursework that you've done, who understands specifically what that company is looking for and how your experience can apply to that, I think is really helpful. It also kind of helps you as an applicant because you're able to narrow down the field very easily. And now you're looking at just IEs instead of maybe other companies. I really like those two. I think they're great. The other thing is because it's a smaller environment. I just feel a little more comfortable there. It feels more personal. It feels a little nicer.
For sure. Yeah, because IR can feel like you're like,
IR can feel
lost.
like a festival.
Yeah, like you're a fish in the sea.
Yeah.
It does feel like a fish in the sea. There's so many recruiters and people swimming around on that day.
The lines, oh my God.
The lines
You think we're at an
can be
amusement
bad.
park.
Yeah.
When you're
I
looking,
think I've waited less for 6 Flags.
when you're looking at those large lines with those big companies at IR, for anyone who's gonna be coming here, don't stand in the line if you're not a junior or a senior for those big companies. It's not worth your time. And a lot of those big companies will allow you to schedule appointments. So you can skip
prep ahead.
at least most of the line if you put a little foresight and forethought into scheduling that appointment. And then also it's just go talk to the companies that don't have lines. Just because they don't have a line doesn't mean they're a bad company or you'll get a bad experience at them.
You can kind of manufacture, like if 2 people start standing for something, other people just line up behind them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just kind of, like the line doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess one other thing I wanted to talk about, I know you mentioned some of those student clubs that you were involved in. What are the ones that you were involved in again? What do you do with them? And then are there any others you'd like to highlight?
I was involved in ISE, which is the Institute for Industrial and Systems Engineers. It's a large professional organization. You probably have those for any engineering major on campus.
Yep.
This was the industrial engineering one. They organize a lot of the conferences, a lot of the career prep, a lot of like speakers that come here. And they do a lot of work with that. And I think if you get involved with the exec board, you get more involved with that as well. But I was a general member. And then fencing club. Obviously, I did fencing in high school. I wanted to continue doing it in college. It was just a fun experience. I don't have as much time to dedicate towards it now.
Yeah.
And the practices are late, so I'm not a member this semester.
That's a shame.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and they're really welcoming. So I think if people are interested in that, I guess in general for clubs in college. I think my general rule with it was, well, the rule I told people now, not the rule that I messed up when I was freshman year. But join as many as you can your freshman year, and then kind of zero in on maybe 1 or 2 professional clubs that you want to do, maybe 1 or 2 like personal or like interest clubs that you want to do.
Yeah.
It's good to have the professional thing there because then it helps you out with career development. And again, it's a resource. Yeah. The people there are all involved in certain things, and they can give you insight into stuff that you might not have known about. You know what I mean? And the club has a certain objective that it wants to do, and that's to get its members more ready and suited for the professional world.
Yep.
And then the personal thing is you get burnt out during engineering if that's all you do.
Yeah.
You need to take the time outside of your engineering coursework to enjoy your hobbies, to partake in your interests, to just hang out with people and not talk about industrial engineering in your case.
But yeah, it's just take some time off for yourself, take those mental health days, whatever, and just kind of do stuff that's not engineering. Do stuff that's not just math, science, chemistry, whatever. It's good for you. It gets you that good recovery. And, college, I think I view it as not just a place to get an education, but it's a way to broaden your horizons. So try things that you might have not known existed or weren't available to you before. Bouldering specifically, like we have a rock wall down here that I didn't use for 2 years. And I started using it. I was like, damn, this is really fun.
Yeah. Bouldering is great.
Yeah. My hands right now are like messed up because of it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But like, I like it so much. And it's like, well, this is just something that I would have never done otherwise. Right. Something that's available here. Even like the gym, we have a really nice gym. And I started working out because we have a really nice gym. And
it's there and it's free to students. So it's easy and accessible.
Just a lot of that stuff is like the resource thing. I guess I'm saying resource. I should find a thesaurus. But you're in a place where there's 40,000 young people. Yeah. And those 40,000 young people are given so much resources, whether that's money, whether that's just space, whether that's mentorship, to do whatever they want to do. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's everything's out there. Everything is out there is what I've seen. Yeah. So no matter what you're interested in, what you think you might be interested in, it'll be there at Purdue, and use that, I guess.
Yeah. And I know you touched on some of the things like bouldering and going to the gym. Yeah. What else do you do that's outside of engineering for fun, or maybe even outside of Purdue?
Outside of Purdue for fun? I've been trying to, I really like I talked about like learning like reading, general knowledge, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But I've always been really interested in like history stuff. I'm taking a class on Alexander the Great right now. Alexander the Great and Hellenistic Greece, and that's been really fun. We have a great bookstore right on Chauncey Street called Vaughn's Bookshop. It's like the upper level is kind of like newer stuff and like some like arts and crafts and like fashion stuff, I guess. And then downstairs they have a used book section, which kind of looks like this old like cellar like catacomb.
Yes, it does.
And I've gotten some really good books from there. But you know, it's a great place. I live off campus actually, really close to Celery Bog, which is like this nature preserve.
Yep.
Obviously it's winter right now, but we're getting into spring, which has been really exciting. This day's been nice. And like when the flowers bloom there, it's just beautiful generally.
Yeah.
I love that. The horticulture park, I've gone walking there. I don't know if you're actually allowed to, but I go walking on the golf course sometimes.
As long as they're not golfing, you
Yeah.
can. Like,
I
so
used
after
to during the
6
summertime.
p.m. or whatever.
And like the sunsets there, so I don't know. I don't know if it's me just like becoming like an actual fully formed person having a frontal lobe. But like I feel like sunsets have been getting nicer the past couple of years. I don't know, especially during the summertime. It's really cool. Yeah, I don't know. I've made some great friends here at Purdue as well. You know, I feel like freshman year, again, COVID year, but we used to have like 30-40% Mafia games in the basement of Earhart, which was always fun.
Yep.
I met a lot of my like best friends freshman year and sophomore year through that. You know, it's just people want to hang out. It's college. You want to make friends. You want to have fun. People are thinking the same thing as you. Just like literally walk up to them. I saw one of my friends from freshman year, Zenon. I met him because like me and a guy from high school walked up to him when he was playing cards at like lunch, and we were like, "Hey, can we play?"
Yeah.
Boom, like 4-year, you know what I mean, friendship.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I've got a couple stories.
Yeah.
I'll share one of them. End of BGR, which is Boiler Gold Rush, our freshman orientation week before classes start. I didn't really click with my group that I was assigned for the week, so I was still feeling like I don't really know if I have that many friends here.
Yeah.
And so I saw some people planking, you know.
Like the
Yeah, the ab workout exercise in the lobby of Earhart, and I'm like, ooh, I can plank. And turns out they were playing a card game, and that's how I met my sophomore year roommate.
Yeah.
And then one of my like best friends right now, he picked me up off the side of the highway. At least that's how I like to start that story. We had met a couple of times before at Run Club. Trust me, I didn't get in the car with a random stranger.
Yeah.
But I took the bus out to Target, and I was waiting for the bus to come back in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I got a call from him, and he's like, oh, hey, I just think I saw you. Are you standing
Yeah.
on the side of the highway? And I'm like, yes, I am. And he's like, do you want to ride back? And thus a friendship was born.
Exactly. Oh, BGR, go to the IM fields. Go
Yes.
there and just join whatever activity they're doing. I met
Yeah.
so many friends playing frisbee, playing like
Spike
football,
ball.
spike ball, whatever. It's like everyone. It's not competitive. It's like, well, sometimes it's competitive.
Yeah.
But it's like it's just a great way to meet people, have fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, the IM Fields and Croc Lawn as well.
Yeah.
And they have the Be Involved fair there, so all the
yeah.
clubs are there during BGR. So that's how you can get your first steps into clubs and different organizations.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then I guess we've covered a lot of stuff, but looking forward as you're about to graduate, how
Yeah.
has Purdue really satisfied and reassured your choice in industrial engineering
Yeah.
and prepared you to take that next step in getting the full-time job at UPS?
So I think the best thing about Purdue Industrial Engineering and the engineering program as a whole that I kind of want to speak to is the amount of practical experience and, you know, just stuff that you get to do here that is applicable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a kind of hands-on guy. I don't like theory as much. I like practical applications. I think the coursework you do at Purdue, the projects and like stuff you do, and senior design, I should talk about that a little bit, just really prepares you really well for the environment that you're going to be in, not just in terms of academic material, but like kind of the social dynamic of navigating a workplace, working with groups, working cross-disciplinary, across different majors, communicating effectively, time management, project management, all that sort of stuff. Is so important, and you'll learn it because you work so collaboratively at Purdue. You're never kind of by yourself. You're always working with different people. You're working with groups. You're working with people who have different like knowledge bases, and you have to, you know, kind of get your ideas across in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
I think that really helps. Senior design. I'm in my senior design group right now. It's been a great experience, honestly. My group is great. Like, we're working on a really interesting project, simulation kind of stuff. And you know, it just feels so. I feel like an adult, if that makes sense. You know, communicating with our corporate sponsor, communicating across that, building this kind of stuff, getting feedback, all that sort of stuff. It's a great program. You know, I'm putting a lot of time into it, obviously, and I'm really excited for the results for it.
Yeah, no, I'll echo that point about senior design, because it's a lot of work, but it's super rewarding to see how you can actually apply everything you've been learning the 4 years that you've been at college to a problem, and to actually create a project or a prototype at the end of it is just really rewarding.
And the fact that you have faculty advisors as well, but like just going back to like old faculty that you haven't seen in like a while, I mean, like, hey, so I'm doing this problem and like I need help, and it's like, wow, okay, yeah, I'll help you out on all this. It just kind of like looking back at like all the professors you've had, all the people that you worked with, kind of it's like a big culmination of everything, which I think is really cool.
Well, thank you so much for all your insights. We really enjoyed having you on the podcast today. And I guess my final question for you is going to be, what's one piece of advice you'd give to an upcoming freshman looking at Purdue engineering?
If you're for engineering specifically,
Or just in general.
In general.
I'd say
Students going to college.
I'd say take time to get to know yourself as well as other people. I think, again, college is an exploration of yourself and your identity and who you feel you are as a person, right?
Yeah.
And I think a really big part of that is never like shoehorn yourself into a category, right? I'm not, you know, XYZ, you know what I mean? I'm not bound by, you know, the boundaries of what I believe I am.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not just, you know, the engineering guy, or I'm not just the bouldering guy. I'm not just this. I can be whatever I want to be. And I think that's what college is you can build a path for yourself. You know what I mean? The you in the future is just you now plus what you do tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to be someone different, you can be someone different. You know, it's never like restrictive like that. And I guess, you know, understand what you want your future to look like, what you want your life to look like. And, you know, you can make that possible.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that was
Beautiful.
excellently said.
Sorry.
Amazing. And there's nothing else to say there. That concludes this week's episode. As always, please reach out to the Office of Future Engineers if you have any further questions.
Yep, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.